right before everything changes, most people do the exact wrong thing. They assume nothing is happening, and that assumption quietly resets the entire process. If you've been feeling a strange calm lately, a lack of urgency, a silence where there used to be tension, this is not random, and it is not stagnation. But this moment is fragile, because if you misinterpret it, you interrupt it, and almost everyone does. Stay with me, because what feels like nothing right now may be the most decisive phase of your shift, and reacting to it could quietly anchor you back to the old pattern. There's a specific internal state that appears right before a major reorganization. It doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't feel exciting. It doesn't feel like breakthrough energy. It feels neutral, flat, almost boring. The mind interprets that neutrality as a problem. It asks, why don't I feel motivated? Why isn't anything happening? Did I lose alignment? But what if I told you, this neutrality is not loss, it is integration. And the reason it feels so subtle is because your nervous system has shifted out of reactivity. Let's understand what that means. Your brain is not designed for transformation. It is designed for prediction. The nervous system constantly scans for patterns it already knows. Familiar tension feels safe. Familiar struggle feels predictable. Urgency feels productive. But when a real shift begins to organize itself internally, something unusual happens. The nervous system slows down. Beta dominance, the high-frequency problem-solving state, reduces. And when beta reduces, the body stops signaling that something needs fixing. For a brain addicted to solving, this feels wrong, because the absence of urgency feels like the absence of progress. But in neuroscience, regulation is not inactivity. Regulation is stability, and stability is required before integration. This is where most people interfere, because the moment urgency disappears, they try to recreate it. They look for signs, they check outcomes, they analyze the silence, and without realizing it, they reintroduce measurement, which brings us to something critical. In quantum physics, there is something called the observer effect, but it's often misunderstood. It doesn't mean watch harder. It means that measurement influences outcome. A system being constantly observed does not stabilize. It fluctuates. When you emotionally monitor your life to see if it has changed yet, you are measuring. When you check for evidence, you are measuring. When you analyze whether something is working, you are measuring. And measurement keeps probabilities open. Stability requires the observer to relax. Right before everything changes, your identity is already ahead of your circumstances. But if you keep checking, you pull your identity backward. And this next part is subtle. There is a gap, a threshold state, between who you were and who you are becoming. In that gap, urgency disappears. The old identity has dissolved enough to stop reacting the same way. But the new identity has not fully stabilized yet. This creates a neutral zone. It feels like nothing, but it is not nothing. It is the bridge. And bridges are not meant to be decorated. They are meant to be crossed quietly. If you try to build on the bridge, you destabilize it. And this is where self-sabotage disguises itself as responsibility. The mind whispers, maybe I should just adjust one more thing. Maybe I need to do something. Maybe I'm missing a step. These thoughts feel intelligent. They feel mature. They feel cautious. But they are reflexes of an old identity trying to regain control. Have you noticed this silence lately? The absence of urgency. The strange neutrality. That's not emptiness. That's alignment without friction. But there's another layer you need to understand. The brain prefers familiar failure over unfamiliar success. Because failure, it understands. Success, it cannot predict. Prediction error activates discomfort. When the future configuration of your life becomes unfamiliar, your brain experiences a data gap. It cannot forecast accurately, so it tries to reintroduce activity. It tries to generate movement. It tries to manufacture urgency. Because urgency feels like progress, but real change does not feel urgent. It feels stable, and stability feels quiet. The paradox is this: right before everything reorganizes externally, everything internally becomes still. If you trust that stillness, the system completes. If you resist it, you reintroduce noise, and noise delays collapse into form. Most people believe manifestation happens in excitement, but excitement is high-frequency instability. Stabilization happens in regulation. A regulated nervous system signals nothing is missing, nothing is urgent, nothing needs to be chased. And when the body signals nothing is missing, reality reorganizes faster. Because urgency broadcasts lack, waiting broadcasts incompletion. But presence broadcasts sufficiency. Right before everything changes, presence replaces pressure. And the mind doesn't like that, because pressure feels like movement. But presence is integration. This is the final layer. You do not complete a shift by doing more. You complete it by not interrupting it, not measuring, not adjusting, not reacting. The solution is almost offensively simple. Stop reacting. Stop measuring. Let it integrate. Do nothing. Not because nothing matters, but because at this stage, action reintroduces friction, and friction keeps the old structure alive. If you've been feeling calm lately, less urgent, less reactive, that may be the strongest signal you've received. Not that nothing is happening, but that everything is reorganizing without resistance. And when the system reorganizes without resistance, change stabilizes quietly. Not explosively, not dramatically, but permanently. If this perspective resonates with you, write in the comments, "I let it settle," not to convince reality, but to signal to yourself that you recognize the bridge, and you're choosing not to interfere. And if this way of seeing expands your awareness, subscribe so you don't interrupt the next shift. We'll continue from here.